What year is it?
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and much, much more. I'm your host, Josh Scar, and joining me, as always, is everyone's favorite tabaxi. It's Alex. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad that you're back from your trip to Green Bay. You still smell like just Wiener Schnitzel, brats, and beer, and so must have been a great trip.
Don't forget the cheese curds.
Oh, how can we forget the cheese curds?
Yeah, but I do have a qualm to pick with you because I wasn't going up to Green Bay to like console the team because they lost. They won a really good game. They destroyed the Arizona Cardinals. I went up to give Romeo Doubs a big hug because he had a rough week the week prior. And this week he had 2 touchdowns. So I wanted to give him a big hug.
In a stadium full of 85,000 people, you just walked her out there and just gave a hug. That's actually romantic.
It's actually kind of funny you were like, oh, he's up in Green Bay, blah, blah, blah. If money things had turned out better, I actually would have been in Green Bay for that game. I was planning on going, taking my kids up for their first game. So that's actually pretty funny and apt of you to have made that comparison. But for those of you watching on YouTube, this is something new that's happening because if you're listening on the podcast, we are doing a tier list this week because 2014 was a stacked year for movies, and we made a list of about 46, I think, movies that need to be talked about. But we didn't know how to talk about 46 movies in a 45-minute to an hour-long episode. So we decided we're going to do a tier list and try and make people mad that way. With that, if you're listening on the podcast, we'll do our best to make sure that everything is laid out in a coherent manner. But the best way to actually listen to this episode is probably on YouTube because you'll have the video representation as well. But first and foremost, we got to go hear from Tim, Joey, and Alex from the Video Game Club pod. We'll be right back.
Welcome to my friendly game club where everyone is welcome. The podcast where we share, we play, we run and sing. Well, we don't run, but we do sing.
Hey kids, are you looking for a new favourite fortnightly video game review podcast?
Then boy howdy have we got the show for you.
We take a different game every 2 weeks and we review them just like a book club.
You can find us on all good podcasting platforms.
And some of the sketchy ones too.
Simply search for the Game Club podcast and join the club today.
I kind of want to go to Toys R Us now.
I do too, and man, my British accent comes out a lot stronger on that podcast than this one.
Well, I don't know if you're the northern boy or not. That would be the Game Club Pod's Alex, who is also known as the northern boy, or Celestial Shrimp, or Space Shrimp. But either way, check out Game Club Pod because it's a great time, and the boys are just wonderful. So we are getting into this tier list, which I was not sure how the tier list maker worked when you were creating your own tier list. I had actually gone through and done a list in order of release dates, but they just completely randomized all my uploads from the posters that we've got here. So I guess we'll just go from A to Z or whatever we have, whatever the 46th letter of the alphabet is. Let's
do this. I'm excited for the randomness.
There's a couple of these that I know you're not going to appreciate me for, but we're going to get into it. So as anyone listening on YouTube can see, or watching on YouTube can see, we have 5 categories. We have all-time classic. We have must see, which is our usual rating. We have it's fine, which is our occasional rating that we allow in if a movie doesn't trigger any kind of response from us. We have pass, where it's basically just like, you don't need to see this, it's not good. And then we have it's bad. This is the one where you say, don't see it, don't spend your money, time is an investment. Don't invest anything into this. Let it rot in the pile, in the same dumpster pile as the ET video game.
I agree. And let's start this tier list by rating the tiers. I think all-time classic is an all-time classic. Must see is definitely a must see. It's fine. It's right there in the middle. Pass. I mean, I guess I will accept that. Maybe if it's on streaming. And it's bad. Yeah, we're gonna have to say that one's bad. So this is a perfect tier list.
Already. So the first one, coincidentally, that came up here is the one that kind of triggered this whole 10 years ago thing for us is Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat, whatever you want to call it. We've already spent an entire episode talking about this one. I'm throwing it into all-time classic.
Exactly.
It's a movie that whether it's on it's The Martian, it's The Shawshank Redemption. It's a movie that when it's on, no matter what you're watching, if you're watching on classic TV, if you're watching on streaming, if you come across this movie, you're like, I might as well watch this. This is the thing that's on now.
Oh yeah, it is perfectly slotted where it is. It is a must-watch. It should be seen. It's an easy rewatch, a great way to lose a few hours, or just watch Emily Blunt. She's very watchable.
She is very watchable in this movie. Yeah. Next up, we have X-Men Days of Future Past, which, Alex, I'm going to let you kind of kick off the conversation on this because I have opinions, but maybe they're not the same opinion. So where would you slot X-Men Days of Future Past?
Is this the Rogue cut or the theatrical cut?
I'm going to say the theatrical cut because no one has seen the Rogue cut, except maybe for you.
I have that Blu-ray sitting in my basement somewhere. So this is the culmination. They were trying to rejoin the original mutants with the prequel mutants, and of course they center it on Wolverine because everybody loves Wolvie. I remember walking out of the theater loving this and just like, yes. But over the years it just kind of staled a bit. I would slot it with it's fine.
Oh wow, you're actually a little more contrarian than I am. I know a lot of people would say this is an all-time classic. It's arguably the best Fox X-Men movie they ever made, right up there with X-Men 2 and X-Men First Class. I think it is too Wolverine heavy.
Yes.
I do think it's also a little too Mystique heavy. It's too heavy on trying to make some things work that don't need to make work other than the fact that they're trying to nostalgia bait us with, hey, it's been 10 years since the X-Men franchise started, almost 15 years. Don't you want to see Patrick Stewart back? Don't you want to see Ian McKellen back? We already got Hugh Jackman back. Like, what else don't you want from this movie?
You want bone claws? We got bone claws. You want
No, thank you. No one wants bone claws.
You want allusions to him becoming Weapon X? We don't even pretend this is happening at the end of this film.
You want us ignoring the fact that he should have bone claws from in the future? We're going to ignore that too.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this is a must-see if only for the Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy Professor X's meeting.
Yes, that's really good.
That scene alone is the peak of this movie for me. Like, I don't like a lot about this movie, but I do genuinely love the McAvoy Stewart Professor X's meeting of the minds.
Definitely. I accept that.
Next up, we have Luc Besson's Lucy, which was actually recently discussed on an episode of Two Blokes from Blighty. Tim and Joey both absolutely hated this movie. I think it's absolutely fine. I absolutely nothing this movie. Like, I saw it and I thought it was immediately forgettable.
Yeah, basically. It's fine. It's worth a watch just because it's a fine little swagger. It tells an engaging story if you turn your brain off, which is ironic considering it's about unlocking your brain.
And then by reaching, which I think by the time this movie had come out, the theory that we only use 10% of our brains was completely debunked anyway.
Oh, yeah.
But that was the premise they were pushing out with this movie. But I mean, apparently if you access 100% of your brain, you just turn into a USB-A drive.
I know, that's another thing. They did not have the foresight to turn you into a USB-C. Or at least a Mac Lightning adapter.
I was going to say a lightning cable because she has to be proprietary. But I think there's some cool visuals in there, but the storytelling is absolutely nothing. The movie makes no sense. It has nothing to say. It's just an action vehicle for Scarlett Johansson to become a big pile of goo and then a USB drive. And I mean, Morgan Freeman gets to monologue quite a bit. But it's fine. I don't think it's terrible. I think there are some people that genuinely enjoy it. But I don't think it's a movie that you can actively hate, which is why I think it goes in just fine.
Yeah.
Our first MCU entry, going right up there at the all-time classic. I'm sorry, the first Guardians of the Galaxy. You cannot hate this movie.
Not at all.
The subsequent sequels, I think there are some legitimate gripes with, but this first one is pretty close to a perfect Marvel movie.
Now, the only thing that really you can hold against it is that this really did set the Marvel tone for every 14 seconds somebody must be quipping somewhere, and that really set the tone for other films. But when you have something like this, which defines a genre where people go like, oh, so it's a Guardians of the Galaxy but a video game. Oh, it's Guardians of the Galaxy but this. Just like people will say, oh, it's Die Hard in the White House. Oh, it's Die Hard on the sub.
Yeah.
It set the genre. It set the tone. It's damn near perfect.
And it did kind of ruin needle drops for almost every other movie ever.
Yup.
Because if you have needle drops in your movie now, it's like, oh, it's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Next up is one I'm going to defer to you because I have only seen clips of this. I have not seen Whiplash.
Whiplash is an emotional movie. It is a painful movie to watch. It really deserves the accolades and the nominations and awards that it was given. It is a hard watch, so I'm going to put it as a must-see, but you really only need to watch it once. The performances are great, but it really is about a toxic... I'm not even sure if they really give you a message that toxic abuse of pushing people is bad, but it's also like kind of good. I mean, it is bad, but they're also like,
it's almost like refining ore and like the pressure on coal creates a diamond kind of thing.
Yeah, but should you be doing it? That's the question.
Should you be glamorizing it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. It is really good.
I've heard nothing but good things, and everything I see out of it, I'm like, God, J.K. Simmons is amazing. I also I don't care for what's his face.
Miles Teller.
Yeah, his face is just, he probably has the most punchable face in Hollywood right now. You just see him and you're like, oh, that would be so satisfying to feel that cheekbone on my knuckles.
We don't condone it though.
We don't condone violence, no. But if you see Miles Teller, maybe you can punch him. Just we absolve ourselves of any legal actions.
Allegedly.
There you go. Next up, it is Transformers: Age of Extinction. I know where I want to slot this. Where do you think this should go?
Pass.
Oh no, it's bad.
Okay, thank you.
It's bad.
Okay.
There's no redeeming qualities in Age of Extinction. Between the Romeo and Juliet law, like we're talking about glamorizing bullshit, like taking 5 minutes out of a movie because Michael Bay or some producer was like, hey, I had a girlfriend who was under 18, but because of weird legal loophole reasons, I was able to have a romantic relationship with her. Maybe you should put this in your movie. That is grounds for you just not getting to work in Hollywood ever again.
Yeah, no, it was bad, and it led us into The Last Night, which the franchise has never recovered from.
No, not really. I mean, Bumblebee is still very good, especially the first 5 minutes of that movie. I still will hold that Rise of the Beasts is also very good. It's a lot of fun. It does more of what you want a Transformers movie to do. Obviously, we've talked about Transformers 1. It wasn't my cup of tea, but I also don't like tea, so... Next up, How to Train Your Dragon 2.
If it's on All Time Classic, I'm going to be mad. Yo, yeah.
This is the Empire Strikes Back of animated sequels. Like it is practically a perfect movie. Like the only thing I can think of that would be a downside to How to Train Your Dragon 2 is how heavily they're foreshadowing Stoic's death.
Yes, but How to Train Your Dragon kind of reminds me of how I rank the Lord of the Rings movies where or the original Star Wars trilogy, which is the first one's good, the second one is just perfection, and the third one caps things and you can walk away from. You won't have a bad time putting any of them on, but you're probably leaning towards the middle one if you're going to pick a DVD Blu-ray from your collection to watch.
I think that's fair. Next up is the Not Rock Hercules movie. There were 2 Hercules movies that came out in 2014.
There were?
And I can't remember who starred in this one. Let me pull it up real quick here. IMDb.com. Hercules 2014, Not The Rock.
There was more than one?
There's the legend. Oh, this is The Legend of Hercules with Kellen Lutz.
Yeah, oh, yes, there were 2. Oh, pass. I mean, no, it's bad. No, put it in as bad.
It's bad. Okay, we still don't have a pass yet. That's interesting. Next up is the RoboCop remake. I think it's fine. I think there's a lot of stuff that they tried to do, but because they limited themselves to a PG-13 rating, it kind of became a little bit too cluttered. But I really enjoyed the update to the classic RoboCop look. I think the helmet in both iterations of the suit is kind of dumb, but it also makes me very hopeful for a Mass Effect movie because the armor is basically just Mass Effect armor.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's fine. I think the the things they tried to do and the things they did well work. It's just that it's a little too cluttered, because the premise of what makes a RoboCop, how far do you go before the man becomes the Robo? And I think there's interesting stuff in the scene where they like take away all the robotics of him to show like what was left after the explosion. Like that's genuine body horror stuff, which I don't like, but like Joel Kinnaman kind of sells it too.
You're right. It's fine. It doesn't have the satire of the original first two, and it doesn't.
And that is something that's missing from it. Yeah.
And it doesn't quite know what it really super wants to do for itself, because it can't be like super pro cop, but it also can't be super anti this. So it finds this middle ground where there's some very cool visual ideas, and if it had been more successful, I think with the producer, writer, directors, with a little bit of success behind them, a little bit able to throw their body weight around, I think the second one could have made it a more definitive statement, but it just ended up as it's fine and was kind of forgotten.
Turning it into a generic action blockbuster did kind of hurt it. But again, I think there's little things in there that really work, like focusing on his relationship with his family. And I mean, you've got an amazing cast in there too, along with Joel Kinnaman as Abby Cornish, plays his wife. Yeah. You've got Samuel L. Jackson playing a Fox News host. You've got Gary Oldman playing the scientist that's like trying to find the middle ground between the perfect cop and keeping his humanity intact. Then you've got Michael Keaton as the villain. It's got everything you want in it except for a quality story, which is why I think it's fine.
Yep, I agree.
Next up, we have Mockingjay Part 1. This is another one where I think I would say it's fine, because they're doing the whole splitting up the last book into two parts. I legitimately don't know that I could say I remember anything from this movie, though, other than the very end where we see PETA betraying them. I don't even remember. Like, I just remember they're looking at a TV screen and PETA's on screen.
It's fine. That's what it is. They needed to split the book in two. They padded it out with Katniss like doing promo shots for the revolution and all that stuff, and then you get the cliffhanger ending of PETA being mind controlled, broken by the system to support Snow. It ends up fine, but they should have been one movie.
It should have been one movie, and I mean, you can also very much tell that everyone was checked out by this point, especially after the passing of Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yeah. No one was interested in this franchise after the second one, I think.
Yep.
Which, I mean, there's only 4, so halfway through. Next up is the one that kicked the granddaddy of them all, the one that kicked it off, Godzilla 2014, the cornerstone of the MonsterVerse, Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. I would say this is a must-see. I don't know that it's a classic, just because it is a bit slow and too human focused, but it's still very good. And I think the thing that really comes away from this movie is the sense of scale with the monsters.
Yeah, they told a decent story by focusing it in the US, which often has been an issue when you remove it from Japan. They did amazing scale. The new Godzilla design looks fantastic. Godzilla ain't around it much, but that last fight is really well done. The atomic breath finally coming out is like perfect. The color palette is great. And you get to see what happens when Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch aren't around Robert Downey Jr. Apparently they get married and try to have kids.
That's the Ultimate Universe, if I remember correctly. Comic book reference for those of you that know. Next up is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is the second Planet of the Apes movie after the Rise of the Planet of the Apes is the first one. So we have Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, or Dot Poda, as the cool kids call it. I have not seen this one. Again, the Planet of the Apes films, besides the like original Charlton Heston one, is a franchise that is still very much in a blind spot for me. I just kind of forget they exist, so I forget to watch them. So Alex, I'm going to defer to you. Where would you put Dot Poda?
I think it's fine. I've never really gotten the hype around this series. I watched the first one, and it was all right, kind of showing the origins of it, and then we get to Dawn. I think Rise is the third one or something like that.
I think it's War.
But I don't really get, I mean, other than being a technical showpiece for how amazing mocap actors, when working hand in hand with visual effects artists, can do. The stories are fine. I get they're going for something more. They're using it as allegories for war and oppression and racial theories and all this stuff. I get what they're investing in, especially with the power dynamic being changed, where humans are now the subservient or being hunted, and then the foundations of society. But I don't even like to see them when they're on. I just kind of like, yeah, I saw them once or twice and it's fine. I move on. They never hit a good emotional core with me.
I think that's fair. I know a lot of people really enjoy them. These are ones that just slip through the cracks for me. I don't know why. So I'll defer to Alex and say that Pota is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is absolutely fine. Next up, this is a different one for us. This is the Grand Budapest Hotel. What's the director's name? I forget. He did Fantastic Mr. Fox. He's the guy.
Wes Anderson.
Wes Anderson. This is probably like peak Wes Anderson at his best, like storytelling and his classic visual style. I would say this is a must see. I think this one's a lot of fun. Ralph Fiennes is doing really good stuff. I forget who else is working alongside him. But it's a fun little mystery movie, if I remember correctly. Like there's a murder involved, and Ralph Fiennes is just chewing scenery in the best way possible, and he's having a lot of fun. So I would say Grand Budapest Hotel is a must see.
Definitely. And for the MCU fans out there, Flash Thompson himself is in this. Tony
that's right. That's who it is. He plays the young bellboy.
Very cute love interest with Saoirse Ronan. Well, I know I butchered her name. My apologies.
I think it's supposed to be pronounced like Saoirse.
Okay.
I saw a video of where someone's asking her, like, how do you pronounce this? And they're like, oh, it's Saoirse, or you pronounce it another way, but Saoirse is like the most commonly accepted one. Okay. So Saoirse, even though it's spelled like Saoirse or Saoirse or something like that. Those dang Irish or Scottish people with their Gaelic. Sorry, Chat Tsunami, we love you. Next up, this one I'm really interested to get your opinion. It's Snowpiercer. I really like this movie. It's a movie that's kind of made its way into a lot of zeitgeist conversations. But I really like this one for nothing in the movie other than the fact that externally, this movie, even just existing, which I believe it's a Bong Joon-ho movie as well, Parasite director, the host director, and Mickey 17 coming out next year, which I'm super excited for that one too. The fact that this movie even had any kind of release is kind of a miracle, and just a giant middle finger to Harvey Weinstein. Because he watched the cut of the movie, he did not like it, he didn't think it was going to make any money, and so he's like, we're going to do a limited release, and then we're just going to push it to DVD, Blu-ray, home video release. And Chris Evans, Bong Joon-ho, production, everyone that was working on this film pushed back, and they fought for a wide release, which I still don't think it did great. But the fact that it did get a wide release is kind of a victory in and of itself. I think it's a must-see. I don't know that I would say it's an all-time classic. I think it kind of loses itself with the dark ending, which, I mean, that's kind of the point of the movie. But overall, I think that it just misses the mark for being an all-time classic, in my opinion.
Oh, I completely agree. This movie is fun. It is Chris Evans. This is probably the first time other than Scott Pilgrim versus the World where I saw kind of a different side to him. He's not being like the Cap heroic. He's being kind of this gritty, burned out guy who ends up with these obligations to pursue this mystery as they go to the front of the train. It is, I wouldn't say it's an all-time classic, but it is definitely a must-see. It is such a dark film when you start looking into some of the lore that they hint at, or you start looking at some of the background details. Oh, it's a film.
No, that's the middle. It's fine. It's a very good movie, and again, you would expect nothing less from Bong Joon-ho. Next up, another Chris Evans classic, which I'm just putting it in all-time classic. It's Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Yep.
This is the one that 2014 was a great year for Marvel between the Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, those are two movies that I think they were banking on the Winter Soldier being good because it was based off of the Ed Brubaker comic, and everyone just kind of praised it anyway, and they turned it into a political thriller. The only negative I have against the Winter Winter Soldier is the very heavy Photoshop on Scarlett Johansson and her Black Widow pose on the poster. Like, why is she doing a weird little dance? That's just strange.
There's nothing wrong with this film. It's a good film. The only thing is, this was post John Wick, universe. Some of the fights between him and Bucky were a little cut to hell, especially when you see the behind the scenes footage of the one takes that them setting up the camera work, of them practicing, and how much they did all that choreography in one take. That's really the only downside. But that was what Marvel had settled into in a lot of films at that time. The camera must be vibrating at all times while people are fighting, and it
still has a lot of the Jason Bourne in it. Yeah,
it's a damn good movie.
Yeah, no complaints, no notes. All-time classic. Next up, we have Maleficent. Disney. This one kind of is what kicked off Disney's live-action reinterpretations. This was one where they actually took a swing and decided to do a Wicked as well, where it's like, oh, well, maybe the villain's just misunderstood. I'm going to defer to you and see where I land as far as where it ranks. I remember visually being very much in awe of this movie. It did have a little bit of an Avatar style to it, where just like the visuals, the special effects were very good, but there was nothing to this movie in terms of substance or quality. It was just a vanity project for Angelina Jolie and Carlto, what the heck's his last name? District 9 guy, Shipley, Carlto Shipley, something like that. Him as King Stefan. I know that's the point, is you want to hate him, but dear Lord, do I hate that guy for that role. Like, he is grating, not just like in a way of like, he's a good villain. It's just like, oh my God, shut the hell up, man.
Charlotte Copley.
Sure, I flipped it. I called him Carlto. Charlotte Copley, yeah.
Yeah, pass. I hated the idea of this, and that the end did not turn out the fact that she is actually secretly evil the whole time. That would have been just a great, wonderful reveal of like, aha, I've convinced and tricked you all and manipulated you all. And then they gave it a sequel even more down the line of, no. Maleficent turns into a dragon at the end of the damn thing. That she turns her pet into a dragon pisses me off. No. Pass. Do not watch this. Go watch Sleeping Beauty like 12 more times. It's a great little movie. It's like 72 minutes.
I think Pass is good because I don't think it's bad. I do think everything else surrounding the movie is kind of bad. I will give a little bit of praise to the movie because where they recreate Aurora's curse scene from the beginning of Sleeping Beauty, where Maleficent shows up and well, I think that scene is done really well, other than the fact that the three good fairies are played up to be just completely buffoonish and stupid. I think that scene is the highlight of the movie, which again is 2-3 minutes. So for a 2-hour plus movie, it's not worth it. So pass.
Yep.
Oh, geez, this one. Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm kind of torn on between it's fine and pass. It's obviously doing too much. But it's something that I feel like you kind of need to see, especially as they're integrating a lot of this stuff into the MCU. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say it's a must-see. I would say it's maybe fine, but they're obviously doing too much trying to build towards their extended Spider-Man universe and a Sinister Six movie. I don't know if I would say it's fine or pass. I feel like pass is too harsh.
It's fine. Jamie Foxx is doing too much with too little. Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, yes, they were in a relationship, so they have great chemistry, but you don't need to let them just kind of riff their lines the entire time. You can tell this movie was executive metal to hell. Mm-hmm. I mean, people who had entire roles were cut out of the film entirely. People who
Shailene Woodley as MJ was supposed to be in there, and they just completely cut that storyline. They were gonna expand on Peter's parents being spies and his dad potentially not being dead, and they cut that too. There's too much happening here. Like Peter's parents being spies or like deeply embedded in some kind of corporate espionage with Oscorp, just it makes no sense, and it doesn't tie into anything of substance other than it gives Peter reasons to not want to share his blood with Harry, other than obvious reasons of, you have radioactive blood. You probably shouldn't be doing transfusions with anyone.
Yeah, especially if you have read the Sex Lives of Superheroes books that's coming out in a few weeks.
Yeah, we have a great interview coming up in November with that one. So definitely add that to your pre-order list, because that will answer your Spider-Man questions as to whether or not you should get a transfusion or potentially have relations with Spider-Man. This next one I have a lot of affection for, not just because it's Kristen Bell, but because of the story behind it, not just the movie, but the fact that it was a crowdsourced movie that was produced. It's the Veronica Mars film, which caps off the Veronica Mars series, kind of fills in some plot holes. I have very fond memories of this one because Veronica Mars was a fantastic show. I remember introducing Ricky to it, and when the Veronica Mars movie came out, she was very excited to see that because we had almost quite literally just finished filming or watching it, and then I was like, oh, by the way, there's a movie coming out, and she's like, oh my god. I think it's fine. I don't think it does anything spectacularly well. It's a very niche movie because, again, it's essentially capping off a series almost 10, probably like 8 or 9 years later after the series was canceled. But it's a good detective story. Kristen Bell is very good in it. I think it's fine. It's fine.
To me, it would be a pass because eventually we got season 4, which I hated. But
oh, that's right, they did do a season 4.
But in terms of the film itself, it's fine. It's a nostalgic little rewatch.
Yeah. This is the paranormal movie, The Broken Ones or something like that. The Cursed Ones. I'm gonna say pass because I don't watch scary movies. But Alex, I'll defer to you.
No, you were right. Paranormal Activity, like The Cursed Ones. It was not good. They've tried to do the Marked Ones. They tried to do a spinoff that was more focused on the Hispanic community because turns out a huge watcher of horror movies is a Hispanic community. So they kind of tried to do this side story and it didn't work. So much so that they have basically returned to the main for the next like 2 or 3 films, even the one that came out like a year and a half ago. They basically returned to the main storyline. The main attempt didn't work.
Okay, Alex, gonna defer to you with this one too because I'm gonna say this one's bad, but I'll kind of defer to you because maybe you've watched this through different lenses. But A Million Ways to Die in the West, Seth MacFarlane's attempt at getting a movie made with all of his best buddies and throwing in some fun references while also making just a very unfunny Western movie.
It's bad. I was in the theaters and with a bunch of my friends and my spouse, and about midway through the movie I started apologizing to them for dragging them to this because we all liked Ted. Family Guy was still popping really well with its return. I mean, there is some good stuff in here with the mustachery and Neil Patrick Harris. You have Liam Neeson being an Irish cowboy, bad guy, but the jokes just drag and
that's around the time where the Family Guy stuff started really becoming unfunny because they tried to do the thing where it goes beyond being funny because the joke is going on so long that you try to bring it back.
Yeah.
And none of that works. I do think there are some fun skits and there's some fun dialogue. Like you said, Neil Patrick Harris, I think is a highlight in this movie. Some of the Easter eggs and cameos are always fun.
Oh yeah, Doc Brown.
The biggest flaw of this movie is that Seth MacFarlane's character is essentially just an avatar for modern day.
Yeah,
and the reason Blazing Saddles works is because everyone is just of the era, whereas Seth MacFarlane is constantly like, oh man, if only we had penicillin or we had some kind of thing that's similar to penicillin. Everyone's like, what's penicillin? It's like, oh, I don't know. It sounds like a great word though, doesn't it? But ideally it would do this, and it doesn't work in the sense that he's just supposed to be of the era, but he's making fun of the era with modern context, and it's hanging too many hats on the lantern.
Yep, I agree.
Next up, we have The Rock's Hercules. I'm gonna say it's bad, if only for the wig.
It's bad. The only thing I will defend is there's one great shot in the film in which basically it's a deconstruction of the Hercules myth that turns out that Hercules, he's a strong guy, but he has like a group of people around him who like help him with all of these tasks that he has done, and some of them are just are blovacious and stuff. But there is one really cool shot in this film where it shows a not a minotaur, the horse people,
Centaur.
Yeah, a centaur come over the cliffside, and as it's charging down the hill, the light is hitting it differently, and you realize it's a guy on horseback. But because of the perspective, it was a horse person, and that was a really clever, pretty shot. Other than that, the movie sucks.
A movie that doesn't suck is the Lego Movie. That's going up in
Yes.
the all-time classics.
Right where it should be.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Kind of what brought Lord and Miller to the forefront for most general audiences. Gave them the avenue to create Into the Spider-Verse. The animation style alone is noteworthy because it looks like stop motion without it being too janky. They did a great job with it. Plus the jokes. I do think the human stuff is unnecessary, but it does add a nice little punchline to the moral of the story.
Yeah, the big reveal at the end I didn't need, but it also worked. And somehow they made it. They came out of the box and hit it perfect the first shot.
All right, Muppets Most Wanted. I'm gonna say pass. I think other than the memes that the movie created, I don't know that there's anything truly noteworthy about this. And I love the Muppets. I love the Jason Segel Muppet movie, and I think that's part of where this movie falls flat for me is the fact that instead of continuing what Jason Segel did, and I think he was making I don't even remember now. I think it was I Love You Man or something. He was making another movie and he wanted to come back for the sequel, but Disney was like, well, we've already set a release date, so we're just going to go ahead without you. And it completely missed the mark because you didn't have that satire humor involved here. It kind of went back to the Muppets exist in the universe and we're going to just put a bunch of celebrities in here and let them riff and see what makes people laugh. And unfortunately, a lot of it was not letting people laugh.
Yeah, it's exactly where it should be. You're passing this movie by to grab the one with Jason Segel and Amy Adams.
Okay, let's get some more teen dystopia in here. And The Maze Runner, I think it's fine.
Yep.
No, it's a teen dystopia movie. Nothing really to write home about. Dylan O'Brien does a pretty good job, but it's the first installment in a long series of movies that gets derailed because Dylan O'Brien, I think he broke his leg or his arm during production in one of the movies. And so the franchise that was supposed to run for like 6 years ended up running for 10 because of how long he had to rehab.
Yeah, I think it was the second film. They were doing a stunt, and I believe he got run over during the stunt. There's an article recently. I didn't read it. I just saw the headline where he said, like, the production felt unsafe, but they encouraged me to keep going. I was like, oh, okay. So there was some crap in there that derailed his career for quite a few years. But the Maze Runner series, they're all fine. They're also runs that also ran.
Scorch Trials?
Something like that. But there's also the Shailene Woodley series that they also were trying to do.
Divergent.
Yeah, Divergent, Insurgent, Malevolent,
Magnificent. Allegiant, I think, is the other one.
Yeah.
Why do I know that? I don't know why I know that.
Yeah.
I legitimately don't know how I know that. Yeah. Maybe it's because it's an airline and I was just like, free promotion for the airline.
Not a sponsor, but it should be.
Of the Divergent series?
No, we need free airfare.
I think Spirit Airline does that, but I don't know if I would take there.
No.
This is one I've not seen. This is another, this is kind of more in the post-Taken era of action movies where like aging high profile actors like Liam Neeson and Taken started getting their own action franchises, which I mean, Denzel had been doing this for years anyway, even before he was quote unquote aged with like Man on Fire and a few, I forget the other one, there Time something. Yeah. But the Equalizer kind of follows suit in the more of the Taken style. I've heard pretty good things. I would say it probably falls into it's fine just because it doesn't seem to stay in the zeitgeist too often. It's more kind of a meme at this point because he's gotten 3 movies out of this.
I love watching Denzel kick ass in these films. I'm perfectly acceptable with it's fine. And let him make an Equalizer every like 3 to 4 years because that's the thing is it scratches that itch really well of, you know, the old man who just beats the shit out of some jerks for an hour and a half. The stories they're there. I don't know if I could tell you anything that happened between the first and second one and any differences. I think the third one starts off with, of course, he's retired and has to come out for one last job. But they're fun. They're good. You do get to see David Harbour.
Okay. I'm not a fan of Stranger Things, so like, okay. Like, I know he's kind of, I know he's a good dude because he's the guy that like had the same reaction that everyone had when Winona Ryder said she wasn't pretty in the 80s. And he's just like, excuse you? Like, I know you're you, but you don't get to say that you weren't pretty in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Passing again to you, Alex, on this one because I don't watch scary movies. Annabelle.
You slot Annabelle right in the pass. There is no reason a doll should have a film. Dear Lord.
Have you seen what the actual Annabelle doll looks like?
Yes, it's a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yeah, it's a Raggedy Ann, yeah. And they're like, oh no, let's make this creepy porcelain doll that's clearly evil and not Raggedy Ann.
Yes, that is my problem. That is the problem that pisses me off so much.
It's like, what made Chucky work? The fact that he looked like a My Buddy. What makes this work? No one wants that doll. Why would you do anything with it?
Yeah. Now, if we were talking about Annabelle Creation, which is a prequel that came out after this one, that was directed by David F. Sandberg, that's a good movie. This is, they literally had a meme of everyone going, that doll's really creepy. Let's film something around it. No, it doesn't work. And how this film made almost $270 million at the box office, I don't get.
People like being scared by stupid shit.
It's the strength of the Conjuring universe.
Speaking of the quantum universe of stupid shit, Dracula Untold, the universe's never-ending quest to try and create a connected universe of the Universal monsters. This one's starring Gaston. I'm forgetting his name.
Luke Evans. No, Luke Evans. Yeah, it is
Luke Evans. Yeah, Luke Evans as the aforementioned Dracula, trying to turn him into like an action anti-hero. I do think this one kind of gets a little bit too much hate. I think it's fine. Where I think a lot of people kind of give this one a harder time is because it does do the build the universe thing. It has a post-credit scene where I believe it's Charles Dance. He says like the game is afoot or something like that, where he's either an ageless Van Helsing or a Van Helsing like ancestor or something. But they sequel bait it, and no one had any interest in this movie. I genuinely think it's fine, but I would also say it's a pass. Like I don't think even in the $5 bin, most people would probably just shove it to the side and look for something else.
It is perfectly acceptable film. It tried to do something a little bit different, but I think they oversold themselves. I really only enjoyed this for Charles Dance's 48 seconds of screen time, chewing it up at the beginning and then right at the end. And it's hard for me to hate anything that Dominic Cooper's in, better known as Howard Stark.
Howard Stark from the first Avenger. We'll move it up to it's fine.
Yeah, I think
I do, like I said, I do think it's a movie that most people are going to look at and just be like, meh. But if you watched it, I do think you'd be like, it was okay. It was worth my time. This next one, Annie, the Jamie Foxx Annie. I think that's fine. Yep. It's hard to say Annie is bad in any iteration.
No, it was very cute. I did not expect it to be as cute as it was. Is it going to replace any of the other 17 versions in my head? No. Is it going to replace the Broadway revival? No. I mean, I think Broadway's currently reviving it again somewhere. It's fine. It's cute.
Next up, I'm going to say this one's a pass just because I hate body horror. I have never seen this movie, but I have still seen way more of this movie than I care to see. Tusk. I don't want anything to do with this movie. I'm going to say it's a pass.
You can move.
You think it's bad?
I hated it. This is he's getting away from crap. What's the director? This is Kevin Smith. This is Kevin Smith at the height of his I'm
getting away from the View Askew-averse.
Yeah, I am stoned out of my ass. I'm not trying as much as I should be. I've lost all passion. I'm just kind of, which is really sad because I don't think he's lost all passion. To me, he's lost whatever desire it is to be more palpable. Because he was on an upward swing from Clerks to Mallrats to Dogma, Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. He really tried to go mainstream with Jersey Girl, fell back in with Clerks 2. Then he tried Zack and Miri and Cop Out. and he just got burned. And so he just started kind of making, I think Red State is an underappreciated film that he did. But then he did Tusk off of like some joke that he was making on his podcast with some friends. And it just, no. I don't like the body horror, and I don't get what they were trying to say with it, other than to be as grotesque as they could.
Like I said, I have never seen this movie, and yet every like 2 to 3 years, this pops up in the zeitgeist and the internet. It's just like, oh man, Tusk, blah 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 blah. I want nothing to do with that movie. I no, thank you. Next we have Expendables 3. We're gonna say it's bad.
Yep. Either pass or it's bad.
It gets rid of all the gore and fun of the first two movies, and it tries to be a palatable PG-13 movie where you think they're passing the torch to a young Liam Hemsworth to be the new Expendable. Turns out he is just completely expendable and dies in the first act and is the catalyst for the conflict at the end of the movie. And no thank you. It's just not fun. It's not good.
Nope. You have it exactly where it should be.
So this is one, again, I'm deferring to you. I have not seen American Sniper. I know there was a whole mess of people that were very excited about it because it glamorized a highly decorated American soldier. But I do know that there are some things that the movie over glamorized, and they decided not to take into account some of the trauma from this guy's military history. And it never just appealed to me to watch a story that I knew was just so heavily altered.
I'm really torn because looking outside of it is based upon his book, and some of his book did get debunked and or settled because of how he portrayed some people in it and stuff like that. The guy was really good at his job. He served the country well in a time when it was needed. He had a lot of trauma, and I don't think the movie necessarily backs away from that. If I remember correctly, there's like a scene or two where he's just in a quiet room and all he hears is gunfire and screaming in pain of, his fellow soldiers and stuff. And they touch pretty heavily on his PTSD stuff. And it is really tragic, the ending of it, that when he's trying to help other veterans. To me, I think it's fine, because I don't think you need to see it as a must-see just because what it's trying to say. But I also don't know if I can recommend it and watch it.
Sure. It's kind of like Spec Ops: The Line. It's not a movie that... Yeah. It's not something that you can say like, oh, you need to see this. You need to experience this. But it's something that when you see it or you experience it, it's something that sticks with you.
Yeah, it stuck with me. It's not Saving Private Ryan. Saving Private Ryan, either all-time classic, must-see. We can argue about that. I don't need to see it anymore. This one, I respect the story and what happened, and obviously the end of his life and the way it affected his family and other veterans. But for me, it's a fine.
We have another all-time classic on the board. It is John Wick. We did an entire episode 3 weeks ago now about this. So check that episode out and give it a listen, because we don't need to relitigate it. John Wick all-time classic.
Exactly.
This one I think is going to be a good discussion. Big Hero 6. I was thinking about this one earlier today because I don't know that I would classify it as a Disney classic. It doesn't necessarily have that Disney feel to it. It does have the Disney look because a lot of the characters have that Disney post-Rapunzel Tangled look to them. And there's also the what's his face that became problematic as one of the guys. He's in Deadpool. What the hell's his name?
Weasel or Poppet or whatever the hell his name is.
He plays Weasel.
TJ Miller.
TJ Miller. Yeah, he plays Fred in this. So like obviously there's some problematic casting involved here, but I mean it's one character out of a pretty good ensemble. I think it's a must see. I don't know that I would say it's on the same level as like the Lego Movie or Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't think it redefined anything. I think it's just very, very good.
I believe you're right that it's a must see. It is not like its source material almost at all.
No, it absolutely ditches the source material.
No, it was billed as the first MCU animated movie, which it's kind of funny because because it's based on the comics, but it's not really shepherded by the MCU people.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, what if we get Big Hero 6 and Secret Wars?
That would be amazing.
Live action Baymax?
Yes. oh, and they better release a live action like animatronic. I would hug that thing all day. Doesn't it look like you want to be squished? You want to be hugged by Baymax. He's squishable. It's like being hugged by
One of the reasons
marshmallow.
I've been trying to convince my kids to go to Disneyland for our next Disney trip is because I want to go hug Baymax.
Yes.
I want to know if he smells like marshmallows.
The cast does really well. The story is very good. But you're right. There's just something a little off about it. It's not quite Disney.
I think if it was a DreamWorks, like it would probably be more highly regarded just because maybe DreamWorks just doesn't have that higher level of quality compared to Disney. But it's also just, I think maybe the lack of musicalness of it. There's just something a little off in terms of it being a Disney classic. But I don't think that it's not like just a very, very good Disney movie as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And also, I mean, for the last 10 years, anytime I fist bump anyone that's younger than me. Exactly.
I love Big Hero 6. I watch that probably 2 or 3 times a year. This next one is, again, one I have not seen. I think I did the math. I think there are 16 of these movies that I have not seen. Which, again, it's funny that I'm the one that made this list. And I'm just like, I know people talk about this one, or this was a popular franchise. Like, yeah, well, we should talk about this one. But this, I don't even know which Night of the Museum this one is. But it's Night of the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, I believe.
Third one.
So, I mean, I would say it's a pass. I don't care for any of the Night of the Museum movies. But this is the third one. And I think this one kind of killed the franchise, or did they do a fourth one?
No, they killed it. This was 5 years after the second one. You can tell this is just Sean Levy and Ben Stiller returning because the right, profit sharing.
The right number of
percentages.
commas were in the check.
Yeah. I mean, it's still kind of fun. After the first one, the second one had run out of ideas. And this just continues the joke of, what celebrity can we get to be someone famous from history? Can we get this person back? Can we get this person? Can we get this voice actor? And it was fine.
Check out the crazy antics of tiny cowboy Owen Wilson.
Yes. It's a pass.
It's a pass. Penguins of Madagascar. I'm going to say this one's a must-see. If for no other reason than the wordplay that John Malkovich gets to have when he's ordering his henchmen around.
Yep. The penguins.
Charlize, they're on the roof. Elijah, would you please?
I don't know why this movie's so damn charming. I don't like the Escape from Madagascar movies, necessarily, but the damn penguins loop me in. Whenever I go to the orthodontist, they typically have something playing above me, and it inevitably, every second or third trip ends up being one of the Madagascar movies. And if it's the darn penguins, or they're on scene, or on the screen, I am watching them.
I do think that this movie, among others, I'm looking at you, the My Little Pony movie from 2017, I think. This movie does what the My Little Pony movie should have done, which is it doesn't really advertise the celebrity cast because the main cast is the core group of penguins that they've had since Madagascar 1. And I mean, they recast some of the guys in the TV show for Penguins of Madagascar, which I would recommend. It's a hilarious show as well. But you have Benedict Cumberbatch, you have John Malkovich, you've got I think Ken Jeong is in it as well. There's a whole side group of super spy animals led by Benedict Cumberbatch's wolf. And yes, they're celebrities in this movie to kind of add legitimacy to it, but they're not the focal point. The penguins are, as well as John Malkovich's octopus character. But it does it in a way that works because they're still featuring the voice actors and the voice talent from the Madagascar franchise, the Madagascar franchise in this role. They're just being supplemented and complemented. They're not being replaced. Whereas my point with the My Little Pony movie, Emily Blunt is top billed, and they don't have any of the 5 main characters that we spend most of the time with in this movie, being the My Little Pony movie, on that billing. Not even Tara Strong is billed on the poster. And then if you look at the poster, Emily Blunt's character is like a quarter of an inch in the bottom, like right or bottom left corner. Like her character is just completely tucked away because the main characters are the fucking ponies. But God forbid Tara Strong gets top billing on the poster.
Listeners, in case you didn't know, because we don't do this as a visual medium often, right behind Josh, where he has this beautiful Captain America Winter Soldier shield, is a line of My Little Ponies. He has the main 6 up there, and the signed print from Tara Strong as Raven.
Twilight Sparkle.
No, you have Raven, Tara Strong, signed print from Teen Titans, not Teen Titans Go. I gave him the Teen Titans Go one.
Titans Go.
He melted it, and to the right of it is the Twilight Sparkle signed Tara Strong Inc.'s animation cell.
I do have a Harley Quinn #1 signed by Tara Strong, just so you know.
Why isn't that framed on the wall too?
Because technically it's Ricky. I just say I because, marriage, sharing of property and whatnot. But let's keep moving. We don't have a whole lot left. The Michael Bay produced, I want to say produced Ninja Turtles movie. I want to say it's fine.
Wait.
I think this isn't the sequel Out of the Shadows or whatever it is.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, fine.
This is the one with the elevator scene where they do the beatboxing before they go fight the not Shredder. Although now I just reminded myself that there's the whole cut storyline where they were going to make the Shredder a white dude. And it's very obviously reshot to recontextualize all of the scenes so that there is a second Shredder that's not the white dude that was the banker in The Dark Knight.
Yeah. William Fichtner was Shredder until people were like, why is there a white guy as Shredder? And then the very
people
obvious
deduced really quickly that he was obviously going to be the Shredder, and Michael Bay was like, "Oh,
yeah."
I think it's a pass, but it's not bad only because of the beatboxing scene in the elevator.
That were the voice it wasn't the voice actor. It was the
mocap and voice.
Yeah. Actors were just hanging out together between takes, goofing off. Yeah.
And good. Alan Richardson is Raphael, which I think this is one of the first Turtles. Well, no, it's the first live action Turtles movie, obviously, since Turtles in Time. But it's the first one that really kind of tried to add physical differentiations between the Turtles beyond just the red or green or blue or mask. I got green in there because I'm thinking Power Rangers, like the red, orange, purple, blue. That's the only physical difference between them. Where this one, they actually made them different sizes. Some are leaner, some are more muscular. I do think there's too much decoration going on. Leonardo's got the bamboo chest plate, and Donatello's got the headgear, the goggles. Michelangelo's got all the surfer tropes going on everything, every inch of his body. And then Raphael's got the do-rag, which the do-rag had been a thing in the cartoons, I think, for a while at that point. But I think if you go on YouTube after you're done watching this video or listening to this podcast, depending on where you're viewing this, just go Google TMNT elevator scene, watch that, and then you're good. That's all you need to see from this movie.
Agreed.
So I know this won Best Picture in 2015 for the Oscars, but I did not see Birdman.
You didn't see Birdman?
I didn't see Birdman. I didn't know what it was. I don't think I saw that it had come out. Ricky and I were newlyweds. We were getting ready to start a family. So, or expand our family, I should say. If you're a married couple with no kids, you're still technically a family. I don't want to downplay any of that, but we were expanding our family, or we were working on expanding our family. We had just gotten a new kitten as well. So I wasn't paying attention to the Oscar season stuff, but I know it's a pretty good movie. I don't know. It's an Oscar winner. So for me, there's an automatic hesitation to say it's an instant classic just because the Oscars miss so much so frequently.
It's a classic. It is really good. You have Emma Stone given definitely an award-winning role where you can tell that she is starting to come into her own really well as an actress. Zach Galifianakis is really great in his role. Edward Norton is, of course, great as an asshole. Amy Ryan, Adriana Resborn, Naomi Watts is in this, and it is written and directed by Alejandro Inarritu, who went and did The Revenant, I think. Yeah, he did The Revenant a year later and got Leo his Oscar. It is a fascinating film. There is a gimmick involved. The gimmick rides really hard in that
it's a one shot, right?
The film appears to be a one shot. It's not a one shot, but they do a good job of making you think it is. And it really is a fascinating deconstruction of this down on his luck actor trying to earn a comeback.
I do find it kind of funny that this movie also kind of reignited Michael Keaton's career, which also then reignited the nostalgia baiting of casting older actors to come back for their roles.
Yeah. So, no, it's definitely worth a watch or two. There's some depth, and the ending is quite fascinating to talk about.
This one's just bad. It's Dumb and Dumber 2. Not even gonna waste time talking
Nope.
about it. Dumb and
moving.
Dumber 2, bad. Box Trolls. I'm gonna say it's a must see. I don't know that I would say it's a classic. I think it's charming. It's whimsical. Obviously, it's stop motion, so there's a lot of really cool stuff involved with just the production process. But I think that maybe it's a little too Coraline. Like it goes a little too far into the grotesqueness of things.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of makes it a little inaccessible to kids who might be a little more squeamish or people who just don't like gross things.
Yeah, but it is from Leica, who did Coraline, Paranorma, Kobo and the Two Strings, Missing Link. And it is a charming film. And I like that they have this company that does stop motion, that other than the Wallet and Gromit people who are willing to invest in it and do their best to tell mature stories with this animation style. They only put something out like every 3 to 4 years, but it's always well worth a watch.
You can't knock them for their production process because they want to make sure it's done well. Next up, I'm going to say it's bad because I haven't even seen it and I forget that it exists. Sin City, A Dame to Kill For.
You're correct. It is just bad.
I forget that it exists. I forget that they actually did it.
They try to do a sequel years later, and Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller, whatever touch they had with that first one, is completely lost in this follow-up 9 years later. Maybe the only reason to watch it is... Nope, no reason to watch it.
Yeah, I think the only thing that makes it interesting is the production hell that it went through. And you have to watch it, or I shouldn't say you have to, but if you watch it, it's to watch the very clear, like I said, I haven't seen it, but from what I have heard, it's one of those movies where there was no real faith in the first movie. So they just kind of had creative control. They just did whatever the hell they wanted to do and they got away with it. And then the sequel was successful. And then the studio was like, oh, well, we need to make sure our input is in there too, so we can take credit for this too. And then it just became just a mess of a nothing movie.
Yeah. That's all it is. It's a nothing movie. No one who came back for it. I mean, everyone basically came back for it, but nobody really cared.
So if I told you there's a movie out there with, I believe it's Jeff Bridges, maybe it's Harrison Ford. I literally cannot tell from the poster. It could be either one of them. But either Jeff Bridges or Harrison Ford with Meryl Streep and a young Brenton Thwaites as the starring role. That sounds like a pretty good cast, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, The Giver is absolutely nothing of a movie. It's based off an American classic, based off a classic novel. And there's nothing to this movie that I remember anything about. As someone who didn't read the book because I didn't have to in high school, I don't remember a damn thing about this movie. I remember sitting in the theaters watching it with my mother-in-law and my wife and being like, why the hell is this a classic? Why is this essential reading for anyone?
This to me is like what they did with Bridge to Terabithia. Somehow you have a young adult's novel that is poignant, that tells a story that has depth, and somehow somebody gets their hands on it, and through years of meddling we end up with a nothing film with nothing to say that is overwrought and just bad.
So Ben Affleck has had a great run over the last 10 years of marriages, including in the film Gone Girl. With Gone Girl, this is one that I have not seen. I don't even know where I would put this one because I feel like it runs the gamut of anyone thinking that it's good to fine to bad, or not, like a nothing burger. So where would you say Gone Girl goes, Alex?
I really like the music. It's another Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross score. Like, they've been on fire since doing The Social Network. The story is interesting. Yeah, it's based off the book. I don't know, man. Like, I watched this, and you know when you watch a misery porn movie where there's just no one to root for? Ben Affleck's not a guy to root for. He's with Rosamund Pike, and he is secretly on the side sleeping with one of his students, who's played by Emily Ratajkowski. You have Neil Patrick Harris as a semi-sympathetic role, But spoiler alert, there's not much for him to do at the end of the movie. And oh man, I find in one hand I might piss people off by saying it's bad. On the other hand, I'm probably pissing off people by saying it's a must see. So I'm going to cheat and just say it's fine.
I think that's fair because, like I said, it runs the gamut of people. Like there are moments where I see people being like, "Oh, this part's really good," but there's the creep factor and all this, and there's also the fact that Ben Affleck's character is not relatable and he's not sympathetic.
No.
And there, like obviously Rosamund Pike's character isn't sympathetic because she staged her own death to try and frame her husband. So there's a whole thing going on there. And I think it's fine.
Yeah,
it's a movie that if you're scrolling through Netflix, you've seen everything else and you're like, I haven't seen this yet. And then you watch it and then you're like, okay, well now I need a palate cleanser, but you at least experience something.
Yep. And then you switch to box trolls.
So this is one of my favorite experience stories is if you go back and listen to one of our What You Doing episodes, I was talking about the Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir movie that came to Netflix last summer. And that movie out of nowhere is a musical, like a full-fledged musical where within the first 4 minutes of the movie, a character walks out the door and just starts singing a song. And it's a whole musical number. And I was just like, oh, this was not advertised as a musical. I was not mentally prepared for this. Becky felt the same way about Into the Woods. She had seen some of the promotional materials. She didn't know it was based off a Broadway show. And so she goes in to see Into the Woods, saw it was found out it was a musical almost right away. And she walked right out. So I think it's fine. I think it's a fair attempt at translating a Broadway musical back when we were trying to create the holiday musical Lightning in a Bottle. That kind of, I think The Greatest Showman came out in like 2016, didn't it? It was like 2016 or 2017.
Came out after this.
Yeah.
2017.
Okay. So I think The Greatest Showman kind of found the weird capitalization opportunities for musicals in the holiday season. Into the Woods just it missed the mark for a number of reasons. I think mostly because everything about that movie screams no one is there to act, no one is there to do anything but sing into a microphone, and the fact that they have to act on top of it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like no one seems like they're having any fun with this. Plus there's the additional problem of James Corden being involved.
So the most fun I had in this film was when Chris Pine and Billy Magnuson are singing Agony over who has it worse as a prince. Throughout
I forgot Chris Pine was in this.
Yeah, it is.
He's Anna Kendrick's Cinderella's Prince Charming.
Yes, yeah, and it is so just glorious because you can tell the two of them did have fun on that day because they are just giving it. They're all ripping their shirts open, kicking the water because they're like at the river. They're trying to one up each other. Everything other than that, this is the only time I think I've ever been mad at Emily Blunt because we're supposed to feel sympathetic for her as the baker's wife when she cheats on him and then it magically ends up from 0 to 9 months pregnant because it's a magical spell. And I am just so mad. I'm like, no, you're a cheater. You knew he's with somebody else. He's not a good guy. Why are you sleeping with the prince? What is wrong with you? And I get that you're married to James Corden, but get a divorce. He's a baker. Shove him into the oven.
Yeah, I mean, she could have just killed him. Like, that would probably be the easier thing. Like, you all knew him. He's a big fat dude that's a klutz. Like, come on.
Exactly. I mean, it's just, and especially that would have been in the spirit of this film. Just shove him in there, move on with your life. Here he effed up by stealing from the witch, who is obviously a witch who lives next door.
You remember more about this movie than I do.
I was so mad in that theater.
I think it's fine. Well, no, let's move this down to a pass, I think, actually.
No, it's fine because of Agony. It's fine because of Agony.
Yeah, Chris Pine does make it fine. It's fine for Chris Pine's performance. And I mean, Anna Kendrick, you can't not support her in any way.
Exactly.
Next up, we have Interstellar.
I am not giving my opinion on this because I don't need Christopher Nolan fanboys hunting me down and doxing me.
I'm going to say it's a must-see only for the visuals. I think all the human elements are kind of dull and uninspired. I like the math behind it. I like the Matt Damon surprise cameo and the aftermath from that. Going into the black hole, love conquers all storyline is kind of even for me, but I like the science behind it, and I think that's probably the reason I would say it's a must see. And plus the weird monolith robot, like that's really cool.
My lawyer has informed me that I agree with Josh.
So we got 2 left. Alex, do you want to let's do Selma first.
Okay.
I think Selma for the historical significance is a must see.
I would probably agree with you on where Selma needs to be. My problems with this film are not necessarily a result of the script so much as a result of real life. Because of rights litigations, apparently Martin Luther King Jr.'s speeches are trademarked and owned by his family. I didn't know you could do that. Apparently you can.
Interesting.
And so the reason why he doesn't do I Have a Dream is because those rights are actually with a different movie studio because his family was working with them on their own movie.
Huh.
And even his speeches in there were heavily written by the writer-director because she couldn't use them. So that is what I find interesting. I find it so fascinating that these are historical figures with Selma and American Sniper, and we get lost. Reality gets lost in litigation and also movie studio rights and productions over people's lives. It's so weird. I think that it was, for what they had to work with, it was well done. And David Oyelowo, my apologies for
David Oyelowo.
Oyelowo. I think he does a fantastic job with what was given to him to work with. He took on a role that was very difficult. He did try to provide some humanity in there. He tried to portray not just as, he had a very tough job of, we expect to see Martin Luther King as a larger-than-life perfect figure who gives these impassioned speeches. And they do touch a little bit on some of the other stuff that was going on behind the scenes and some of the struggles he was working through. And I'm okay with where the movie ranks. I'm just so sad that movie rights and speech rights got in the way of something that could have probably been more nuanced while also giving these beautiful speeches. And especially now, I mean, his speeches are perhaps just as prescient now as they were 60 years ago when he was giving them.
So one of the things I do want to shout out real quick, just because again, David Oyelowo, it is a weird name to pronounce. He also plays Agent Callus in Star Wars Rebels, which is where I found out about him. And when I found out he portrayed Martin Luther King Jr., I was like, oh, cool. And that's kind of where I came across this. But yeah, I think it's seminal high school movie watching where, a high school social studies class will watch this and get a pretty decent understanding of the Selma to Montgomery Selma to Montgomery March, not watch. I think for the sake of making a movie that will not only make high schoolers happy to have a movie day, but also allow them to gain better context on things. I think it is a must see because, again, I think it can very easily be integrated into a curriculum to help educate people on the importance of the civil rights movement and certain moments within the civil rights movement. So our last one that we have here today, which again, thank you everyone so much for sticking through this. We went through 46 movies through a tier list. We're talking The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies, which, spoiler alert, is going to come back around this December. I kind of don't want to do this one because maybe we tease it for the December episode when we talk about the Hobbits. It's bad. It's bad. I am dreading having to rewatch that movie for what we're doing in December. It didn't need to happen. And there's so much wrong with that movie.
Oh, yeah. So children out there who may be reading The Hobbit and want to watch these movies that are coming up to the appropriate age, you have to wait until you're 18 to see The Battle of Five Armies because that children's book is rated R.
For some goddamn reason. I still don't know why that's rated R. Like, is it because of like the length of the battle at the end of the movie? Like, that was 2 hours in and of itself. But even then, it's still super tame. Like, I don't remember anything about that besides Legolas Mario jumping on some blocks.
So the theatrical cut is PG-13. It's the extended cut, and I believe it is just for continuous violence. It's something like, I guess you can have a 13-year-old see like 85 minutes of straight violence, but once that is stretched out to a full like 210, then it's all. Oh, it's absurd.
It's I
Poor
just
Peter Jackson.
Sorry, my ADHD is kicking in for anyone watching on YouTube. I click in circles, like that's why I was highlighting here. I wasn't doing anything to be like, look at it here. That's just my ADHD kicking in. Yeah, the Hobbit is bad. We'll talk more about it in December, but the looking at this list laid out again, we said we had 46 notable movies, and we've got what, 6, 12, 15 movies that are probably must-sees out of 2014, which, I mean, even getting 6 all-time classics out of a year is pretty incredible, especially nowadays. It's one of those things that we might not see again in our lifetime, getting 6 movies like that where you're just like, put it in the Louvre, put it in the Criterion, whatever you want to call it.
You can't go wrong with those all-time classics. You can't go wrong with those must-sees, and even the It's Fine, it's there for a passive watch. And we even had nice things to say about most of the passes, but the It's Bad, stay away.
Stay away.
If it's 2014 and the movie starts with Herc, just keep going.
I'm kind of shocked we only came away with 7 passes. Like I thought we might have more passes, but even the It's Fine movies, like if they're on streaming and you got nothing better to do, like give them a watch. It's 2 hours of your day that you'll at least be entertained and grabbed into a movie. Not like Last Action Hero. You're not literally going to be grabbed into a movie, but you'll be engaged with it. But overall, yeah, I think this is a pretty solid determination on the list. Still bizarre that we got 2 Hercules movies.
I know, right?
In that year. Didn't we get 2 Tarzan movies like just a year or 2 later?
Yeah.
Well, there's the Legend of Tarzan
and Margot Robbie.
Yeah, which I think that one I think was at least fine. I've seen parts of that one, I think.
The only 2 things I remember about that movie are Skarsgård's 12-pack, because he's absurd abdominal region. Yes. Yeah. He is tall and he is got a long torso and has like a 12-pack, and his mating calls to Margot Robbie, apparently how he seduces her is by doing the mating calls of random birds to let her know that he's ready.
I just prefer the proper mating call of George of the jungle, George of the jungle, strong as he can be. Mm-hmm. Watch out for that tree, as sung by the presidents of the United States of America. But Alex, please let everyone know where they can find us on the internets, and specifically our Discord.
We are tsmackpod@gmail.com. That's how to join the Discord. You can click the link below, where we have conversations about
Conversaciones
about superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and much, much more. Matt, the star of the show, is the star of our Discord, as you guys may know. And also, you can find us on socials at Talking Smack, on Lonnie's website, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Tumblr, AIM Chat.
This is the second week in a row you've advertised Mastodon. I don't have a Mastodon.
We don't?
No, I don't know how to work that website. My boomerism is too much.
Kick, Twitch, MSN Messenger, ICQ.
Don't forget Vine.
Yeah, Vine. We have that as well. I think we have an MSN News account.
AOL.talkingsmack, yep.
Yep, we have our own AIM chat room. It's right there.
You can find all that stuff on our link tree, which is in the episode description. But if you have thoughts, questions, concerns, you want to have us cover a topic, or you just want to let us know about your thoughts on anything, don't forget to leave a review. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a like, leave a comment. Email us at tsmackpod@gmail.com. Thank you to Leo Allen for musical themes, Beppo for our avatars, Retro Studios for our Ricky avatar. Again, like, subscribe, rate, review on your podcatcher of choice. Leave comments if you're on YouTube. Leave a thumbs up. Most importantly, thank you for listening, and take care.
I'm a grumpy old man. I don't like everything the way it is now compared to the way it used to be.
I thought the episode would go a different way, so I had thrown that in as the post credits.
I think that's perfect.